What's up, y'all? I'm JC. If you're new, welcome to the channel. If you're a subscriber, welcome back. Let's talk about the Netflix series Receiver that tracked 4 NFL wide receivers and a tight end on and off the field from this past NFL season. You had Deebo Samuel, Justin Jefferson, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Davante Adams, and George Kittle. More than likely, if you watched Receiver, then you probably watched quarterback from last season that featured Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. And I gotta say, I enjoyed that season just like I did this one. If I'm not mistaken, the original plan was to continue with quarterbacks, but they couldn't find enough guys, so they had to pivot, and that's how we got Receiver. And honestly, I like the move. Hopefully they can keep this trend going by featuring different position groups. I think it would be cool next year if we get a running back, linebacker, or defensive back series. But anyways, here are a couple of things that stood out to me from each player featured in Receiver. Davante Adams, one of the best receivers in the league. I would describe him as the disgruntled vet for a good chunk of the season. We all saw the frustration. Felt like he wasn't getting enough targets. We saw the change with quarterbacks, Garoppolo, Hoyer, O'Connell, and then they eventually made a head coach change from McDaniels to Antonio Pierce. And he just talked about how he wasn't used to this type of situation. In college, you got one of the best quarterbacks in college football in Derek Carr at the time. And then when you get to the NFL, you get A-Rod. So I can see how it was different for him. I would say the moment that stood out to me the most was when the Raiders got the W, but Davante only had 2 catches. And in the post-game interview, he said something along the lines of how his game wasn't measured by wins or losses, but it was measured by greatness. And when your team gets the W and you say something like that, I can see how it comes off as selfish. But I'm going to give Davante the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to just chalk it up to frustration that was built up. The Raiders ended up going 8-9, missed the playoffs, but they seemed to turn a new leaf with head coach Antonio Pierce. I also wanted to point out how the Taco Bell food tasting session was a cool experience, something I would enjoy. And also congrats to Davante on the baby boy. Justin Jefferson, Jets, is arguably the best receiver in the league. Unfortunately, his season was riddled by injury. We saw him go through the rehab process. And then after missing a bunch of games, his first game back, he suffered a pulmonary contusion, was coughing up blood. He just couldn't catch a break. But despite missing all of those games, Jets still finished with over 1,000 receiving yards. And that's just a testament to how good he is out there. And when it came to his background, I knew about him being a low recruit coming out of high school. His brothers played at LSU, but I did not know the story behind the gritty. Basically, his mom told him that when he scored touchdowns, it was boring, so he needed to do something. So one game after he scored a touchdown, he started to do the gritty. He looked at the ref, he wasn't penalized, and he just ran with it. Vikings didn't make the playoffs, but we all saw Jets get paid, and rightfully so. Deebo Samuel, Swiss Army knife, listed at receiver. He's also used at running back for the Niners, one of the best all-around weapons in the league. He's another guy who battled injury throughout the season and postseason. We saw him tough it out with that scapula. To be honest, what was shown in the series outside of family and football, it really wasn't much to Deebo. He seemed like a simple guy, and there's nothing wrong with that because I'm a simple guy myself. Amon-Ra St. Brown, fantastic receiver for the Lions. Chip on his shoulder. He's driven by being underestimated. He knows every receiver drafted ahead of him in his draft class, and I believe the correct order. And dude was toughing it out through the season, from the torn oblique to the hand, foot, mouth virus. I just couldn't imagine, but I guess his mind over matter. And then his family was heavily featured. His dad, John Brown, was an all-world bodybuilder. German mom, his brother Equanimous, who's a receiver for the Bears. And I gotta say, John Brown was the funniest person hands down in this series. And it was a bunch of things, from the Coca-Cola rant to the banter that he had with Amon-Ra's girlfriend, to him bragging about his physique from back in his bodybuilding days. That guy was just straight up comedy. But Amon-Ra, all-pro season, he helped lead the Lions to the NFC Championship game. And we all saw him get paid by putting in all that hard work and producing on the field. George Kittle, top 3 tight end in the league. Happy-go-lucky personality, funny, optimistic, always uplifting his teammates. We got to see his off-the-field interests, sneakers, Legos, wrestling, and I had no clue that he participated in WrestleMania. I wanted to point out that it was a class act by the Niners fans when they sung his grandma happy birthday, who I believe had just turned 100. Niners got to the Super Bowl, but for George Kittle and Deebo, the season ended just like how it did on quarterback, with Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs winning it all. Also wanted to highlight the players' support systems, whether it was dad, mom, sister, brother, girlfriend, wife, cousins, friends, extended family. I enjoyed the series Receiver, like I said earlier. I hope next season they feature a new position group. In the comments, let me know what you thought about the series and some of your favorite moments.